How did the comedy come about?
Initially, it was really clunky, but also I knew that it was clunky. I knew that it was bad. So that's what really helped. I knew I was kind of funny. And then my brother was like, hey, you should upload stuff to YouTube. And I did it. I watched a lot of videos. I remember thinking, my video does not compare to these guys, but I like what I did. And so I want to get there, but I'm going to keep doing this until I get there.
You wrote up on some charts,
dude. We were on the Christian music chart. We were between like Lauren Daigle and I Can Only Imagine. At one point, I took a screenshot, be like, this is the greatest moment of my life. I was like above I Can Only Imagine. Couldn't believe it, dude.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Barndo show. New setup, new digs. Got our first guest here. Like, what's up, Shama?
Oh, I'm the first guest in the new setup right now.
Yeah, I mean, we got to roll with it now. We done said it. You know what I mean? Like, so. But you the first guy in the new setup, so I'm digging it, man. These guys have been working crazy to get this thing looking all, make me look sophisticated. I got books on my side. You know what I mean?
So the books is a great touch.
Yeah. So, dude, like, just take a second to introduce yourself and, like, who are you and what do you do?
Oh, I'm Shama. I'm a comedian, MC, actor, video. I'm not going to do that thing where you list everything that you do, but yeah, those are the three things that I do.
Followed up with credentials.
Carpentry. I like to smoke meats. So I'm just a comedian. I create sketches and parodies and music with friends here in Greenville, so I have a really great time, and it helps that a couple million people have watched it.
Yeah, man.
So that's really, really fun. But thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, dude, it's fun. I follow you on social, man, and I just crack up. Me and Andrew just be sending texts back and forth about stuff, and it's always fun to just follow you around. But, like, how did you get into that?
Well, first of all, you're my demographic because you used to work at a church.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I love people. I'm like, hey, if you have church, behind the curtain church experience, I'm making videos for you. I'm making jokes for you. So I grew up a church kid, like Bible Belt. So I was born in Tanzania, East Africa.
Okay.
Moved to the States when I was young.
Time out. Born in Tanzania. So let's start there. Like, what was that like?
I mean, it's hearing my mom talk about it and hearing my dad passed away several years ago, but hearing him describe my mom said she worked for the government and made $10 a month. And she was like, we lived in a 2-bedroom apartment that cost 50 cents. And I'm like, what are you even talking about? So I was 2 when I moved to the States.
Okay.
And we lived in Alabama. So yeah, there's I've talked to a lot of second generation Africans who were all the same age now. And we're like, yeah, all of us our parents immigrated here in the early 90s when we were in diapers, and then we're growing up American, but our parents grew up very, very third world country, African, poverty, all those things. So yeah, it's a wild dichotomy.
Yeah, tell me Tanzania and Alabama. I mean,
yeah, similar, tomato.
That's wild. So 2 years old, you came here, and then
grew up here, and then my parents always wanted to go back to Africa. They're like, we want to go do ministry in Africa. So. And they would tell me this, and I was growing up, I'm thinking like, I saw things, I'm playing N64, we have friends with 4-wheelers. We're doing all we went to a private school, I was playing basketball, and then when I turned 11, my parents were like, all right, we're going to move back to Africa. And I was like, what? What? And at that time we lived in South Carolina, and I was like about as redneck as most people could get. I was on track. I was on the track. I wore overalls, all the things. And then we moved back, and my parents planted a church. So before they moved
in
back, Tanzania,
and now you're 11.
Yeah, I was 11. Yeah, so it was what? But before that, the spider bite of church comedy, I guess, if you will. Me being Spider-Man, the spider bite was when my parents became missionaries. 2 years, I think a year and a half or 2 years before we went back to Tanzania, they were like, all right, we have to raise support through the denomination that we were with. And that consisted of going to a different church every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and sometimes Thursday or Friday. And so we went to so many different churches in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia for years. And so just hundreds of evangelical church experiences that just got, filed in my brain.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where
you got a content library.
Oh, yeah, man. I'll ruffle through them and be like, oh yeah, this. People running around with flags, and people are like, how did you know that? And I'm like, yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's crazy, man. Like, so all right. So you fast forward, then you're 11, and now you live in Tanzania with your family.
But live in Tanzania with my family.
And what is that like?
Once again, that was the biggest culture shock punch to the face I've ever experienced, because I'm super American. I don't speak Swahili. I didn't speak Swahili at the time. I do now. I had to learn the culture and ask questions and try to make friends, and then try to learn the language and and then my parents were like, also, you're going to be homeschooled. So it was a lot. It was,
so you're
huge.
Like a Tanzanian.
Yes.
American missionary to Tanzania.
Yes.
That's a stretch. Yeah, I can't imagine.
People are coming, because also I look Tanzanian.
Yeah.
So people would come up to me and just speak, paragraphs in Swahili. Oh, yeah, and I just go, man, I have no idea what you're saying, man. I'd have to call my mom over. Can you translate and just tell them that I don't speak the language? And then Africans, they do this thing, man. They're like, they hate that you're, if you're not African enough. So that's the whole thing too. So then I'm getting berated for not knowing the language. I'm like, I've been here for 2 weeks, man. I lived in Effingham, South Carolina. So yeah, there was a lot. It was a lot at once, but it was a really great experience. Looking back on it now, I think at the time it was really frustrating. A lot of lashing out to parents, being a preteen, all those things. I think I told my parents both. I was like, let's just go back to America. I want to go back to South Carolina. As little African boys say, that. I want to go back home. This isn't my home. So there was some of that, but looking back on it now, I guess it's a cool experience.
No, I'm sitting over here thinking like, wow.
Now, I would never do that to my kids. I don't know. I jokingly say that, but it made me who I am. So we actually just had lunch, my wife, and we have 3 kids who are 5, 3.5, and 2. And we had lunch with some friends who have 3 kids, and they're going to a country in Asia to do mission work, and they were telling us about that the other day. And I'm looking at their kids, because their kids I think their oldest was around my age. So I'm looking at him. I'm like, whoa, that's how old I was when I went back to Africa. And they were just asking me like, hey man, what was your experience? So I got to speak with them, pretty candidly about like, yeah, man, it's just, it was a lot, but at the same time, I had my siblings and my parents, and we had a good home foundation, and we figured it out. Made a lot of mistakes, but we figured it out.
That's awesome, man. You said, so how old was your sister when y'all?
My sister was, she was 3 years younger than me. My brother was 2 years older than me.
Oh, okay.
So we were in there.
But at least you had siblings, right? Yeah. So you weren't like the only one that couldn't speak.
Yeah. That was the best part. We'd be at functions, lost, just lost, sitting next to each other, just yapping with each other. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Like, so then, when did you come back to the States?
Moved back to the States for college. So when I was 18, another culture shock of being like, okay, also you're not living with your parents anymore, and I didn't have a job, I didn't drive because I was just in Africa, and so like you don't do any of those. Like I rode the bus and all, and then my parents just dropped me off at college here in Greenville with a car and $100 bill and a suitcase. And they're like, we paid your first semester, figure it out. And so, yeah, just, did what people do, man. I got a job at Bojangles and
there you go.
Went to Bible college,
All right. Now you're embracing the Southern again, man.
Oh yeah, man. I made so many biscuits, dude. I made way too many biscuits. It was a lot. For $7.25 an hour. That was a fun time.
Man, that's crazy. Like all I'm sitting here thinking is like, from my perspective, like I didn't have that. I didn't have that story, but like what a cool story. Cause I think like correlating this, I guess a bunch of people would be like, well, he's got a comedian on the Barndo show. But like the thing is this, like it's all perspective of like how you can navigate challenges. And when you see obstacles, they're opportunities, and so like starting out this business, right? We didn't know either. Like we had to learn like the language of barndominiums and realize that really it's not even a language. People didn't even know what they're talking about. And like, everybody's got information and everybody's got these different perspectives, and we're trying to figure things out. And then like there's this overwhelming demand, and it's tough. And like you're talking about, like I got dropped off all by myself with a car that I don't really know how to drive and $100 in my pocket. That's very similar to an entrepreneur story.
Yeah.
It's like I showed up, I did this thing, and then it's like, I mean, and most entrepreneurs, if they had that $100, they're like, man, imagine what I could build. And so like it tracks, it correlates with like this. That's life.
Yeah.
I got a 23-year-old son, and he's had challenges and things, and his life is different. We adopted him when he was 11 years old, and like he has this like 2 different life segments of his life, and so like he was 11, and then he showed up at our house with a family and things, and like faith in his life, and like he figured that stuff out. And so like 11 to 18, he had 9 years of this like different way of living.
Yeah.
But he never forgot 0 to 11.
Right.
And so like I think that story just it speaks to a lot of people, because everyone has this like unique identity, and then you get thrown into things, and life comes at you, 700 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And people freeze, and people don't know what to do, and like to overcome that situation, to be, like you basically you grew up here. Like,
yeah.
Your core memory started here. And like you said, you're like, I'm in Tanzania talking about I'm ready to go back to Effingham, like I'm ready to go home.
And I meant it.
100%. And I think that's a struggle that people have, is like, I want what's comfortable.
Yeah.
Right. And God calls us to do things that are uncomfortable sometimes in business, and life draws us into things that are uncomfortable sometimes. And I think the ability to navigate the uncontrollable determines like who comes out and what it looks like. Because some people would quit.
Yeah. I heard somebody once say that life happens while you're making plans.
100%.
And so I make plans. I'm an adult. Like I've made plans, but then life is also happening. And so I'm just a huge fan of anybody who's built anything. And I'm not talking about just a construction, just in terms of a career, a thing, it's hard, man. It's because I think a lot of people have the testimony of, oh yeah, I'm really passionate about this, or I used to do this. I've heard that a lot. Like I really want to do this, and I used to do this. I'm like, oh, what happened? And life happened. So I think it's a true testament to resilience, to go, hey man, I'm gonna wake up every day, and I'm in comedy, so I'm gonna wake up every day, and I'm gonna get punched in the face if something doesn't land.
Yeah.
Not in terms of like physically assaulted, but it hurts. It's like putting your heart, your effort into a bit or a video or a song, and it doesn't work. You're like, all right, I'll do it again. And I'll keep doing it again, because that's what I'm interested in. But I think for a lot of people, you're like, I don't know, I don't want to fail.
So how did you unlock that? Right? Like I'm trying to piece this together in my mind of like, all right, you had this crazy experience.
Yeah.
I'm a Tanzanian American missionary in Tanzania. And then you move back here.
Yeah.
And you're in like a Bible Belt Christian college doing things, and like, how did the comedy come about?
Initially, it was really clunky. But also I knew that it was clunky. I knew that it was bad. So that's what really helped, because right. I knew I was kind of funny, and then my brother was like, hey, you should upload stuff to YouTube. And so he taught me, how to upload. typical big brother, like fussing over my shoulder while I'm all right, hit whatever. Now you got to write the description, and now choose it. And I did it. And I watched a lot of videos. I remember thinking, my video does not compare to these guys, but I like what I did, and so I want to get there, but I'm gonna keep doing this until I get there. And so that was I don't know if I'm. Are you unself-aware if you claim that you are extra self-aware? Is it?
I think it depends on who you're talking to, because like if I feel like I'm pretty self-aware.
Yeah.
In the last 5 years. but my wife will laugh when I say that. You know what I mean?
I was even like hesitant to say that, but I was just self-aware enough to go, hey, I am not making good content, but I want to make good content. And I even, people would compliment it. Sometimes I'd be like, you're just saying that because you're my friend. You know what I mean? Like I want to get to the point where people just go, hey, that was great. And I knew I wasn't there at the time. And so I just kept pushing. Like I just kept doing it.
Well, it's like a passion thing.
Oh yeah.
And I think people lose sight of that. Like when they look at this and like, it's entrepreneurship. Like you found something you love and you're like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
Can I survive off of it? I got to adjust my way of living. Right. But like, you gotta lean into it because you care. And like, you got to be your biggest fan because it feels like everything you do, you can't deny the fact that you're like, maybe this is the one.
Right.
This is the moment. This is the thing that gets me found. And like, and then it's just haterade, baby. This and like that's where most people quit.
Oh yeah.
They can't take it. And so like and I tell people like if a negative comment or someone's opinion can sway you, then you're not building on the true foundation of what you're wanting to do. You're chasing something for an opportunity, for a monetary opportunity. You're not chasing a passion. And man, I'm telling you, like people look at Barndo and they're like, how in the world this and that? And like my wife laughs because like people be like, oh, your husband was a bit, that's so cool. Like he just started a business and y'all are successful. And she's like, do you know how many stupid ideas this man has had in 20 years? Like this is like number 172, and then it worked. He's just dumb enough to not quit having ideas, and like that kind of moment. So like, all right, so you're doing that, you're figuring things out. You're like, I know it's clunky, but it's I like it clunky, and you're happy.
I'm fine, man. I'm pulling the lever and I'm losing every time.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah.
You're like scratching for the next penny.
Oh yeah, man. But the next penny at Papa John's delivering pizza. I'd take a paycheck and be like, I'm buying a microphone. They're like, what? Yeah.
People ain't gonna understand it, man. Most people don't understand that. Like
I tell people a great maybe this is wrong, but a great idea never works on paper. Like maybe some people do. If you're building something, it has to work on paper before you do it. But most in like the creative space, if you write it down, like if you just go, hey, okay, so I'm going to buy this camera and I'm going to convince my friends to work for pizza and then we're going to make a thing. And then it's probably going to do, I'm going to upload it to these 4 platforms and see how it does. And then that doesn't make any sense. Also, it's not going to work if you're starting out from zero. But so I try to tell people, I've been married now for 6 years, and sometimes I'll tell my wife an idea. She's like, you should talk to somebody about that. I'm like, I can't because I sound crazy. You understand what I just explained to you?
You are my person.
You are my person. I need you to trust me. And it might fail, but I kept showing up. And then in 2017, I met that guy over there behind the board, Andrew, and I had this song idea called Chick-fil-A, but it's Sunday.
Chick-fil-A, I want you, I need you, but it's Sunday.
And our friend Forrest introduced us. He was like, hey, you should come to our church. And then the first Sunday I was there, he was like, oh, we have a studio here. You should meet Andrew. He's a producer here. And I'm being like, a producer? I don't think I'd ever met a music producer before, like in my, so I thought, oh, hey, I've made some music just on my laptop with GarageBand, and it's bad, but I still love making music. And so I remember I connected with Andrew and I told him about this song. Like we scheduled this day and we were in the studio. I'd never been in a studio before. We were in the studio in Powdersville, and he just like, it was more baby stepping than anything else. We just baby stepped me through this creating of a song, and I pitched bad ideas, and he took some and he shot down most, and he did his thing, and he picked up a guitar and play, and we made Chick-fil-A, but it's Sunday, and we put it out like either Christmas Eve in 2017, and that was our first video, like the first video I've ever done through the power of collaboration that did over 1 million views. And so that to me was like, it was like it was the first I don't know if I was on an escalator. If I was on an escalator that was going down and I was walking up, that was the first time I felt like I moved.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was like, all right, I think we can keep doing this. Yeah. And we have like the friends who worked on that song and the music video, Robert and Brian and Andrew, like we've kept doing that, you know, several other times, and we've been really blessed with some great hits along the way.
That's awesome, man.
So, yeah.
So 2017 breakthrough moment. Right?
Oh yeah, man.
It starts paying off. So how long was the like what year did you
first upload? 2012.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's you got a 5-year grind there.
What is it about 5 years being the magic number? Like I heard people say 5 years before you know. Something happens? I don't know. Is it God? Is it the universe?
I don't know.
Is it Father Time going like, all right, hit him? Like it was really, really cool because for the 5 years, you know, like I said, I was uploading stuff to YouTube and Facebook. And friends and family are like, ha ha ha. You see what, you know, Shama's kind of funny. And people at church be like, hey, I saw you do this video. It was kind of funny. But then after that video, it was like, hey, man, you need to keep doing it. You know what I mean? It's like people going like, that was incredible. Well, how did you shoot that? How did you?
And then you probably had people, that was the first piece of content they ever saw. And they just assume you're new.
Yeah.
You know? Like, check this guy. He just started, you know? And they're like, you know, and
like, buddy, you weren't with me. You weren't with me vlogging in my living room in 2013 to an audience of 40 people.
And 39 of them sent me messages telling me to get a job.
Yeah. That is very funny because that's true. Yeah. People were like, oh, man, I just discovered you or whatever. I'm like, hey, thanks. But, you know, I've been at it for a minute. That was cool. I think that breakthrough moment, and it also came. I remember my dad was really ill, like it was like 2014, 15 through 17, and you know, and he watched me like he was on Facebook. He saw my videos and stuff, and you know, he'd show people, or you know, he didn't tell me about it or whatever. And that video hit, and I flew to Tanzania to see him because I was in college. No, I was out of college already. I was working. And then I had flown to Tanzania because we dropped it on whatever. I think we dropped it on Christmas Eve. And then I flew to Tanzania on New Year's Eve. And I remember my video, I was in Africa, my video hit 1 million views. And I'm like DMing, I'm like texting Andrew. We're going crazy. And he's like 8 hours behind because I'm in a different time zone. And I remember telling my dad, like, hey, my video hit 1 million. And he was like, I'm proud of you. And he passed away 3 days later.
Wow.
And so to me, there was this like, you know, as a man with a, you know, but it was cool. It was cool, especially being a father now, for my dad to know, hey man, remember all those times that you lent me your camera with the mini DV tapes and I shot something and I plugged it into a TV and I rewinded it on the camera and showed it to you and it wasn't good. And then I also borrowed your computer and I heated it up because I read used all the RAMs to use Windows Movie Maker to make a really crappy, funny little silly video. It was cool to go like, hey, it paid off. You know, it paid off. So
yep. And I mean, you experienced something there that's irreplaceable.
Oh yeah.
It's a powerful thing.
I'm thankful for that every day.
Yeah. Look, like my dad's still living, but my dad is like 8th grade dropout, School of Hard Knocks, trailer park hero, you know, like, and I remember being a kid and hearing my dad tell stories about his childhood, and I'm like, bro, my dad's a soldier. Like, I'm not cool. And my dad's like, you know, money, you got to hustle, you got to get money. And I never understood that perspective. And I realized when I got older, the reason was like, because he killed himself to make my life better than his.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't have the same. He grew up wanting. I grew up not lacking much. Like, and we weren't like wealthy, but I didn't have the same story. And I'd be like, and I was always a creative. So my dad's hardworking, and I got the work ethic 100% from him. And like some of the stuff he told me, like while I'm outside, like just raking leaves in the middle of summer, or like there wouldn't even be leaves. My dad'd be like, just rake the grass. I think it's thatch. You got to thatch the grass. And
Let's rake the grass.
yes, just do something. And I remember being like, this dude's a lunatic. And I would have all these creative things, and I got into music, and I got into working in churches and all that stuff. And my dad would always be like, this isn't sustainable for you.
Yeah.
And we'd go back and forth, and he saw me do things, and then same thing over the last few years. My dad kind of sat down and was like, dang, dude, like, you did it. Like, and I've got this family, and like, I'm very involved. And so like my dad, there was a moment there where I never heard that from my dad. I'll tell you, the first time I ever heard my dad tell me he was proud of me, it was the night before I got married. And that's a powerful thing. Yeah. Like, I knew he was proud, but never hearing it. Right. And like, in that moment, standing there, and I remember we were in a barn. And that it's crazy. Barns are like, it's impossible for me to get away from it.
That's the circle. That's your circle of life, man.
What's crazy is we were standing in the loft of a barn that was on his farm. That was like our man cave. Pool table up there, hanging out. It's the night before the wedding. All my buddies are there, and my dad's like, he's a stone cold killer. And I just remember he's like looking all uncomfortable and emotional and stuff. Like his son's getting married, and like. Yeah. He's trying to tell me stuff, and he's like choking up a little bit, and he's like, I'm proud of him. And I'm like, what? And what's wild is that place 2 or 3 years later, me and my wife lost everything in 2009, and had to sell our house, and my wife was pregnant, and like everything collapsed. I was in the construction field then, and doing commercial stuff, and like literally the world stopped moving in 2008, 2009. And I had bought a home. I couldn't afford it. I didn't have income. Couldn't figure out what was going on. The economy is just dead stifled. And I had to move home with my parents as a married guy. And I remember being like, this ain't gonna fly. I can't do this. And so I went up to that barn, and me and my dad turned that into a house. And wow, me and my wife moved in that home. And, our first daughter was born, and she passed away shortly after birth. And that barn on the hill has so many like core memories for me. Our first daughter we fostered in that barn. Like everything. Now my sister lives in that barn, and like it's massively nicer now. I tell her, I was like, that's the benefit of being the 8-year younger sibling. It's like, it's twice as big and beautiful. And her and her husband got married and moved in there. Yeah. But like that barn on the hill is like a moment to where God was writing something, and it's just like, it just has carried over to like the Barndo Co. And then, like it's insane. Like I told my wife, I was like, we have ornaments that we hang on our tree every year. And like, we have one from that year when we moved in that barn. It's like, life's better in the barn. And I told her, I said, you ever wonder if God's got a sense of humor?
Yeah. Wow.
We thought life was better in the barn then. And then now, like this barn thing, it's like, I can't escape it. I was like, I don't know. I was like, Jesus had to be born in one. I guess I feel blessed, but like.
You may be in the holiest industry of all time.
Of all times, baby. Like,
I think that what you just described to me is like that. It is probably the most accurate depiction of what success looks like. I think. When you think about like the. I think if anybody doing anything, like, people just want to know that you're all right, right? That they're proud of you, and that's something that like the views and red carpets and going to a bunch of places, Andrew and I've been. It's cool. But at the same time, just the fact, just your parents knowing that, oh man, like they're going to be okay. Yeah. And then the fact what you're doing also helps other people, like the stuff happening. I mean, it's been a huge blessing in terms of opening doors for all kinds of different things. And to me, I'm like, well, I would have never thought that this would have come from YouTube. Yeah. But the dots that it connected are beyond what I even thought YouTube was. and same thing with you. I mean, you start off, you're thinking like, I'm gonna do this thing. What started off as like a failure turned out to be a great success. Not just for you. Now it's for like hundreds of people and your sister from that, all from those moments. And then even being like, with your dad being like proud of you. I'm like, man, that's the real like the boxes of success. Those are what we need to check off. The bottom line's great. This is the end of the year. All the gross and the net and all those things. You know what I mean? But like,
we like saying gross. The net part. We're like, the gross and the net and
hey man, I'm in comedy. Couldn't tell you the difference. All my money is gross. All of it is disgusting. I don't get it. I don't understand it. But yeah, I think that's. I mean, I think I hesitated through talking through a lot of that. But yeah, that's what success really is.
So you had. Sorry to pivot on this, but like, so you had Chick-fil-A on Sunday. When did the Veggie Tales remix drop?
That was the following year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I talked to Andrew. I was like, hey man, I want to remix the Veggie Tales theme song. Let's do it. And he was like, okay.
Broccoli, celery, gotta be Veggie Tales. Lima beans, collard greens, peachy keen, Veggie Tales.
And so I remember he downloaded. He went on YouTube and like illegally ripped the original theme song, and he dragged it into the program. And then he just started chopping, and he added an 808 to it. And I remember, I remember being in the studio, like I was jumping up and down. I could not believe it. And then we finished the song in a couple of weeks. And then I told a friend, I'm like, hey, here's this song. We need to make a music video, my friend Robert. And I was like, let's just do something green screen, really simple. Let's just get it over with. And he was like, no, let's do something legit. And that was January. And it took us like 6 months to figure it out. So that song actually lived in Andrew's Dropbox for like 6 months. I would play it for people in my car. People would be in my car like, hey, let me show you something I've been working on. And I would just blast Veggie Tales remix from Andrew's Dropbox. People were like, dude, that's really good. I'm like, yeah, we got to figure out a music video. And then we did. And I mean, 1 million views in like 24 hours. It was insane. Articles, write-ups, comments, positive comments.
I mean, you wrote up on some charts with that one. Like,
oh yeah, dude, we were on the Christian music chart, like in iTunes. I remember it was like we were between like Lauren Daigle and I Can Only Imagine. At one point, I took a screenshot, be like, "This is the greatest moment of my life." I was like above I Can Only Imagine. Couldn't believe it, dude.
Yeah,
but it was really, really. I mean, that was another moment too of like, oh man, because you go, oh, is this a one-hit wonder collaboration? And then you're like, no, it's not. Look, we did it again, and it was even bigger. And so that to me was cool. But then also just the song's been out since 2018. Now it's people who are like, dude, my kids listen to that song all the time, or like, we play it. That's the only time our daughter will like dance or stop crying. And to me and stuff, I've had people send me, and I send them to Andrew. People have sent me videos of them dancing to Veggie Tales remix at their wedding.
That's awesome.
At their wedding, which is insane to me because I'm like, I didn't expect that when I made the song. So stuff like that to me is really, really cool. I don't know, like how far it went. And we didn't really push it. We just kind of like tossed it.
Well, that's what
it was like, we'll take it from here.
That's where the best things come from.
Yeah.
Is like, you have this like creative genius moment. And to you, it's like, I think this is where people disconnect. And including myself, is like, your genius is just your normal. And so you're not impressed by it.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of times, like the first 5 years is me trying to create what I think people want rather than just creating what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And then what you realize is like your normal is the thing that people want.
Right.
Because your normal is not theirs. And like they can't even put their mind into it. Like I was thinking about that this morning. I'm like, and I listened to it on the way to to the thing this morning just so I would be in my brain to talk about. And I was thinking,
appreciate those 0.006 cents that you gave me.
Oh, wow, I'm gonna just keep replaying.
I need to run it up.
But like those are the things, man.
Yeah.
Like I remember I hired I was about to. I love coaching. I love like getting people to, consult with, and I had someone that was telling me like, man, people need what you got. And I'm like, but what do I got? And so I talked to this guy and I was like, man, I really need to like spend some time with someone who can help me like get on paper what it is that makes me me. And so he was like, bro, you need to just like pretend you're having this conversation, record it in your phone. And then in the morning when you get up and take a shower, listen to it.
Yeah.
And what you would say to the person on the other end of that phone is what you're looking for. Like, it's you. It's you. And like, you're at a place now where you're not trying to impress anyone. You're doing what you love and people like it.
Right.
And like the most authentic version of yourself, people will resonate with that versus some kind of crafted thing that's tchotchke and makes you think that you're appealing to people. They want real you.
Smarter people than I have talked about this, how hard you have to work to become yourself. Because when you start off in any creative, you're trying to did you see what so-and-so did? And then people even talk about like finding your voice. And you're like, that doesn't even make any sense. Like I already have it.
Yeah.
I've been using it. What else am I trying to do? But that's something that even I've been working on over the past couple of years of like, okay, who am I? What do I want to say? How do I want to say it? Why do I want to say it? All those things, just working it out, yourself. And then that's what people connect with the most. And so because it's almost like people can just straight cut through the fact that, you are being a different version of everything you kind of picked up. We just wanted you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could have given y'all this the whole time if I believed in myself.
Well, I think the secret is everyone's looking for that.
Yeah.
And when they find people who have found it, they listen.
Yeah.
And I thought back to like people that impacted me along the way and people that like were foundational. There's some people out there and some of them know that they're that person in my life. Some people like I don't even have a relationship with anymore, but they were a foundational element. And it goes back to this idea of legacy that I always talk about. It's like people won't remember what you said, they won't remember what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel. And the easiest way for me to correlate that in my brain, the first time I heard it, I was driving home and that was sticking with me. And I'm like, I don't know if I believe that. And I started thinking about school. And I can remember my first grade teacher. And I can remember some other ones along the way, but there's a lot I don't remember.
Yeah.
I couldn't even tell you their names. I wouldn't recognize them if I ran them to a store. But my first grade teacher, the most distant, far away person, and I was like, that's true. Why? Because she made me feel a certain kind of way.
Right.
I could tell you the award I won in first grade. We had T-shirts up around the top of the room, and we were giving them out. And there was an award I wanted, and I lost because my best friend, and he had more markers than me. And he got the Mr. Marker Award, and I was like devastated. Like, and his name came before mine. He was an L. His last name started with L. Mine was an N. And I was like,
it's
Mr.
over.
Marker Award's gone. It's like, they don't even give me, like, I'm getting a participation award at this point in time. And she was like, the Ever Ready Battery Award. And it's on a yellow T-shirt. It probably exists somewhere. I think it's in like a toy box in an attic somewhere. But like,
that is so cool.
Today, 38 years old, I can think back to 5-6-year-old me, and I can see the shirt on the wall. I can remember it. I can remember moments from that classroom. I can remember the impact on my life from that woman, and it was how she made me feel. And I was like, that's legacy. That's real legacy, and that's a real tangible way for me to view it. And like, same thing with content, same thing with building business and championing stuff is how did you make people feel? And people know. People feel a certain way around someone who's found themselves. And like that is the definition of legacy to me, is like that moment of how it made me feel. And, so when we shared the stories with our dads in that moment, like you'll never forget that moment. That's legacy. Right. That's a legacy moment. And you want that moment for your kids one day. And like those are the legacy pieces, man, and that's the whole thing. So
I feel like even more so now, having kids and thinking through a lot of that stuff, and even thinking about it, now I'm thinking, man, I got a son. Where are we gonna be when he's getting married? You know, the day before his wedding, and those are all things I would have never really thought about. So it's really like exemplified, like really highlighted in my brain now, going forward. Of like, man, this is all happening, and it's not slowing down. But what do I want to do? Like, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be around in those moments? And
the biggest question: what do you want? And most people can't answer it. But if you know what you want, you can build a recipe, go get it. But until you know that, you're chasing someone else's dream.
I want a barndominium.
Amen. I know a guy.
I need a barndominium.
You know, when we started this podcast, I was thinking like it would help people like navigate their way, and I was like, we could help builders, but no, now I'm just using it as a magnet to get guests to build barndominiums. So first guy on the new set, we actually brought a contract today.
Okay. Wait a second. How about a loan officer too? Is that?
We'll figure that out.
I think it's really, really cool. I mean, the when Andrew first told me that he was working on this podcast with you guys, and I'm like, barndominiums. I remember looking them up and then looking up y'all's website and stuff. I mean, like, man, this is so cool. In a world full of stuff, you know, and websites and all those things, I feel like there are only a handful of things that people pause and go, hey, that's actually really cool. And you end up talking to somebody else about it. So I love that y'all are doing like a really cool, talk worthy, you know, follow worthy thing. And it's wild that everybody who sees it, even all on the stories, on your Instagram, all the time on the post, people are like, I need this. How much does it cost? How much does it cost?
Yeah. Can you please tell us the cost?
Tell us how much it costs. I don't want a quote. I need you to put the number right here in the comments right now.
I know, man. I wish that we could just like have them on a shelf and just sit them anywhere and they cost the same. And like, you know, it's a point of tension in our marketing department. They're like, we got to put some numbers on there. And I'm like, you got to put a range or something. I don't know. I enjoy it.
It's cool, man. It's really cool. It's really cool to follow it.
This past year, you've been busy. You've been running around like, you know, I met you a few months ago here at the studio. And then, you know, you went on tour.
I went on tour.
Talk about that for a minute.
I was this first comedy tour I've ever, like, I've done big dates, multiple dates. I do a lot of conferences, events, church staff events, parties, all those things. Youth conferences, youth camps. I do a lot of youth events. That's really the space. And so a promoter in Nashville is like, hey, we want to pick you guys up, you and Jaron, another comedian named Mike Goodwin. And so they booked us for 8 dates, and we did it. And it was great. Tickets sold well, and nobody lost money, which is a miracle. The promoter was like, hey, we made money. And we were like, oh, great. And so that to us was really cool. We were in, you know, minivans, and we flew everywhere. And it was really, really fun. It was a moment. I mean, yeah, it really, because we finished right before Thanksgiving. There was a moment of like, oh wow, I made it again. You know, it's another step on that moving escalator of like, oh, we did it. We're in a city I've never been to, telling jokes to people I've never met, who bought tickets to see us. That's really cool. And then my manager just told me the other day, they're like, hey, the promoter wants to pick up more tour dates for next summer, and they're gonna put you guys on a tour bus. And so I was like, that's incredible. Cause I remember when I was in 2000, when I started off on YouTube being like, I want to go on tour on a bus. Yeah. And I didn't know how I was going to get there. I remember like, what if I'm a Christian rapper? That was not a Christian rapper. That failed really quickly. Yeah. So to me, you know,
I saw on your story a few weeks ago that you put this new guy on, what was it, like Lecrae or something?
Lecrae,
you gave him the Shama pump.
A young up and comer Lecrae. He's up to big things. That young man.
That was the greatest. Where were y'all at?
We were at a breakfast. That his label put together, and they invited me, and I just came up with that on the fly, and he went along with it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
I was like, I'm gonna put him on.
I was sitting on my couch drinking coffee, and I saw that, and I watched it over and over. I was like, that is phenomenal.
And also, I think the funniest part is how tall he is. Like he's like towering over me, and I'm calling him young man. That to me is cool. I mean, it's really cool. This year has been incredible, and the fact that, I mean, not that I'm working, but people are like, people still want to work with me, and it's growing is probably the coolest part. The coolest part.
That's awesome, man. Well, dude, I was pumped that you came on the show, like putting this together, and I think I was working with the Haley and stuff, and we were trying to like figure this thing out. And like for me, like this show is to tell stories about the entrepreneurial journey, because it's all the same.
Yeah.
It's just, again, you found something you're passionate about, and you're willing to take the L's, but they're not losses, they're lessons, and you kept to it. And because it's something that's inside of you, you're like, I got to make this work. And it doesn't matter. Like that translates to anywhere as long as you're actually chasing a passion and not just chasing a project.
Yeah.
And so I was pumped that you came, and this has been super fun. Like I learned a lot about you that I didn't even know, and like all this stuff. Like the Tanzania to Alabama is hands down the best part of the whole story for me. You're like, yeah, I mean, we just like Alabama and
Pelham, Alabama, baby.
And you were like,
Roll
and then there's
Tide.
lots of us there, and I was like, wow,
Dude, there are hundreds of Africans in Alabama and Ohio. Of all places. Somebody was telling me, they're like, oh, there's a whole East African community in Ohio. And I'm like, why?
That's funny.
Cooler states exist. Why do we bunch up? No, I'm just, no disrespect.
How could people, like, if they're listening, they want to connect with you, follow you on social, and get in on all this fun stuff?
Yeah. Shama, the number 4 Reels on Instagram and TikTok. And then Shama Mrema on YouTube, and you'll see all the things. Or if you just Google Shama Mrema, you'll see the stuff. And shout out to all of my all the people that I've been collaborating with. Andrew Simmons in here, and Robert, Brian, Chase, PD, all the guys who we're committed to taking these silly ideas and making them bigger and better.
That you said that earlier, and it cued me, but you had so many things you dropped. I was like picking through them all, like these are all great. But the collaboration and community effect, people get so crazy isolated.
Yeah.
And someone very important to me told me once, like, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And man, when you collaborate, everything you thought was impossible becomes very tangible and possible. And that's a really cool thing that you dropped there. But dude, I appreciate you coming on the show. It's been fun.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing some more content, man.
And I look forward to being one of your Barndos.
Yeah.
For free.
For free. For free. Shameless plug.
I'm on the record.